It is January the 5th. It's back to school week. It's back to work week for a lot of people. But that comes with a lot of financial responsibility, a lot of questions around transitions, a lot of questions around capitation. What am I paying? What am I not paying for? Parents are in limbo, and so are a lot of students across Kenya. And in studio with us, we have Janet Ouko, an education commentator, and a fixer as well, who we've had the pleasure of hosting before. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning.
It's so good to have you.
Always my pleasure to come here and engage.
You know?
Yeah.
You know the drill. We'll start with Janu's quote of the day before we get into the back to school headache.
Absolutely. Thomas Sankara once said, "We must dare to invent the future." What comes to mind when you hear that? And what future should we dare to invent?
I think inventing is almost one skill that everyone or every sector needs for survival. Inventing, because when you're talking about inventing, you're talking about what can we do to reduce costs. For example, how can we do things differently so that then life becomes easier and cheaper, because resources are shrinking every other day. Yeah. So even like, for example, in education, if we cannot stop inventing, we actually need to discuss inventing. We might not make something new altogether, but we can make the old function in different shapes, So it's very relevant for education, and I'm sure I'll mention about it as we dive into our conversation.
Yeah, in fact, just based on that, because we checked, we hosted you, I think, in May, literally almost a year ago. I think we were talking about the burden of fees, and I remember you mentioned how previously there was ways in which it made sense. There was a lot of intention to ensure that the burden isn't as big on parents. It's now almost a year in. Has anything changed from your perspective, from where you're sitting? What are you most still concerned about? Or what's one thing that you're saying, maybe this has improved? So talk to us about still what you're concerned about from that conversation, or what's improved.
One of the things that really still remains unchecked is like how much exactly does someone need to pay at household level? How much should a parent pay for their child to access secondary school, for example? We always talk about how much government should pay or how much government is paying. But I don't know if you know that government could probably be paying about a third, and then the households are left to cater for the rest. And that's why we always advocate for proactivity, especially from the ministry, because they're really the policy owners and the policy regulators. Because we know some people left unchecked. We've been there in the past. Like now, parents are holding fee structures that are obscene, if I may say. So many requirements, and asked requirements for what? Why? Because we had a task force that was led by Kilemi Mwiria, the Honorable Kilemi Mwiria, and page about 46 of the report, we actually said, can we actually discuss what does a child need? Because every parent is holding a list from heaven to below. Right. You must come with a blazer. Inside the blazer is a sweater. Inside the sweater is a sleeveless. Inside it there is a shirt that has to have a rubber stamp of the school. I mean, all these are cost centers. So for me, my expectation of a government that really is implementing the right to free and compulsory basic education as per the Constitution, and free day secondary school, for example, those are some of the areas that we actually want to see government intervening. Can we say with certainty that you only need a shirt and a long trouser and shoes for you to go to school, and a sweater maybe, especially for the hot places like Kisumu? Why would you want someone to come with a blazer, whatever it's called, a scarf?
A hockey kit. I'll never forget that. Yes. A hockey.
There are ways of...
we used to carry a hockey kit.
I know.
Not all of us will play hockey, but all of us will buy hockey sticks.
Yeah. So we really are asking the government to intervene on behalf of parents. Because I know so well, Janet, is that there are many children right now. And I really feel sad, because CBC was supposed to be an all-children thing. But you see, at every turn, what really offended me so much was at junior secondary school, they had to have a different set of uniform. I dare you, it's unnecessary. We did not need that. There's a family that struggled. There is another one that is going to struggle too. Why do we need a different set? Visit the international schools that have got this same model. They have one uniform throughout, the cycle. So why are we so fixated at things which are not helping? Things that don't have any bearing to learning at all. They actually, so it's like the ministry, when it leaves people to have a free hand to managing education. Decisions are made, no, we need uniform. There's somebody's business we are supporting. There's somebody's business we are supporting. So as government, what would you do in that situation? It is the government to stamp its feet that no, because of 100% transition, we actually want children to come out of grade 6 and go straight to grade 7 and 8. Why are we introducing uniform?
That should be the focus. Fees are also very unpredictable. I know you're introducing something in a bit, Mariam, a bite, but just Janet, based on what you're saying, and I was telling Mariam earlier, when I bought uniform in December, oh my Lord. Yes, there is that element of it may not be that many items, but you can just tell there's a strain. And I know I felt it. I really, really felt it.
Someone has to convince me, for an example, why for Mary Hill Secondary School, everybody has to travel to a shop in Thika to go and buy that particular uniform. These things, it's not rocket science. They're common sense issues, and they're making parents really, really struggle. How do I know? Because I come across someone that I know at a stage. Where are you going to? I'm going to Thika to buy uniform. And I'm like, hold a minute. Why are we making parents do all those things, And so some of the things that have gone well, of course, because we must mention, it's like 2 days ago, we saw the ministry has released money for capitation. It's a good thing because for a long time, we have not seen the ministry releasing money without press conferences. We have done several of those,
without head teachers crying,
and so on. But at least now we've seen at least 44 billion has been released. But the devil is in the details. What is 44 billion?
Right.
We stopped accounting at a gross level, and we now account for education per child, So out of this 44 billion, I am yet to speak to a head teacher who has to tell me, because it's supposed to be 50% of the amount, the capitation that is supposed to be sent in first year. So it's 50% of what? Because we don't know if the government is paying 22,000 per child. We don't know if it is 16. We do not know if it is
12.
We don't know. So we need to know that capitation is officially 22,000 per child, and therefore 50% of that is what has been sent to schools.
So where did we actually land on that? Because I left it at capitation has been reduced from 22 by almost 10,000 shillings. Actually, it was quite ridiculous. And then there was the pushback, the clawback. So, I know you're asking the same question.
I'm believing, because I saw a circular that the minister released. And as far as that circular is concerned, the ministry is still meeting 22,000 per child. So, but this is the catch. That there are good intentions within the Ministry of Education to just make sure, because really, I want to plead with the Ministry of Finance to just have some mercy on the Ministry of Education, because they know that even the 22,000 we are talking about is not even enough. So this is the catch. They will not send, they'll send for first term and hold some balances. They'll send for second term and hold some balances. So by the time we're doing third term, they will only have sent 16. But on paper, we are saying we are doing 22,000. So it's really not a nice situation to find yourself, because head teachers are not able to plan.
Right.
And every time government closes back on its commitment to education, a household is suffering, because these transactions in school have to take place. And we must push back as much as we can as parents, as stakeholders, and say no. Education, especially basic education, is a right of every child, and it is the burden of the. I always disagree with people that say that parents must meet a certain cost. If you people want us to go that conversation, it has to be a referendum. We cannot rewrite the constitution sitting on these tables. No,
it does guarantee.
It is a constitution. We must adhere to the constitution. Just the same way, it is the constitution that says that we have members of parliament, that we have senators. How is it that we're able to very easily change when it comes to entitlement of children, and we say, no,
parents
you cannot just give birth to children and give them to the government. No, it is not us. It is Article 43 of the Constitution. It is Article 53(1) of the Constitution. There is nothing we can do about it. So I would really wish to see a situation where because right now it's like we are so scattered in terms of the progress. We don't know. We were doing quite well. But then there appear to be the disruptions. I want to believe that it is because of this new CBC, especially this being the pioneer classes. But can we now go back to the indicators that we had? What are our dropout rates as we speak?
Actually, just hold that thought, because dropout rates, even our literacy rates, being able to read at the grade level you are at, and do arithmetic, those things we need to talk about as indicators, you're right. But just before that, I wanted to still talk about a little bit of money. There's Ndindi Nyoro speaking on education. Let's listen in and have a reaction.
Hiyo mambo ya kuongeza school fees ya day secondary schools, tunaagiza serikali lazima watoe circular by Monday denouncing their earlier circular of purporting to increase school fees and going back to a gazette notice of 2015 that the parent is going to be added an extra burden of over 9,000 shillings. Lazima serikali communicate to our principals before the schools open, kwa sababu tukiongea kwa sasa mashule zishaanza kutengeneza fee structures ambayo inaonyesha ya kwamba kuna increment of school fees by over 9,000 shillings katika shule za day school. Wakenya wengi ambao mapato iko chini, watoto wao wanasomea hizi shule za day secondary schools. Na ni vibaya sana clearly watching cutting off a big population of Kenyans from the education system by making it out of reach of many Kenyans.
Right. That's Ndindi Nyoro speaking on increased school fees for secondary schools. Just give us context. What is this increment? Has it been officially communicated to parents? What is the why behind it as well?
You know, as you can see, I'm scrolling through my phone because I want to pull out the circular.
The circular.
But seems like, it's here. So, from where I sit, there has been no fee increment. The circular that was issued just communicates the position that was there in 2015. And in 2015, free day secondary school had not been introduced. So that circular, that gazette notice, bears a 9,000 Kenya shillings because it's a gazette notice of at that time. So the circular that was issued referred to that gazette notice, but then went ahead to cite policy developments that have now led us to the zero payment of fees at secondary school. And that's what I'm saying. The policy coordination, the communications from the Ministry of Education. What I'm expecting, for an example, is the minister to issue a fresh gazette notice. Now gazetting this brand new reality of saying school fees for the various classes of schools. Because even right now, it was not 53 for all schools across the board. There were different categories of schools. So something like that would offer more clarity because, again, the intentions are good. But abuse is what you see even someone like Ndindi Nyoro worrying about. Because there is a principal who is carrying that gazette notice and saying...
I was just about to ask, so are our schools operating with a circular from 2015 to justify this 9,000 shillings school fees?
That appears to be the situation because the policy has not changed. But you see, when the policy is not implemented, is not enforced, it becomes like kawaida for heads to charge. But if we are starting on a fresh page and saying, no, we are putting our foot down, what would we do? We would gazette to make it law. So that to give people like us who are, we want to do litigation, ground to come from. Saying, no, this is the position of the government and this is the law. Where are you coming from to charge? Because this conversation of day school has to be had, and it must be had. Because if you look at the statistics about, these are now the C4 category of schools, they take the majority of learners. And these are the poorest of the poor.
For our viewers, what's a C4?
The day schools, that traditional day schools, So, and those are the most vulnerable because in this country we know, and people like saying that there is a lot of equity and so on, but it is not true. A day school is very different from a boarding facility. And so one of the other things that I would really want to talk about when we talk about policy tightening, a lot of these things have been discussed. There are policies lying everywhere, but it just needs a tightening of the policies and a ministry that really follows through. And when I talk about a ministry that follows through, oftentimes we think that we're talking about the minister, but the minister cannot do everything. We have county directors of education spread across everywhere. Can't everybody take responsibility? At least do your bit, So many of these things will not be happening. Let me give you for an example. I saw, if we had gone a bit with the Dindi Nyoro's presser, I saw him saying that schools in Kiharo, where he's the member of parliament, they do lunch at 1,000 Kenya shillings per term.
That's quite pricey.
It's really quite attractive, is it? And so
wait. Because
1,000 per term.
Per term. I mean, I wanted to wonder with him,
3,000.
how is it doable, because many schools and parents are walking around with fee structures asking for 7,000 and 9,000 per term for day school meals.
I was thinking of Dishina County, which is, I think, 20.
Now that's a scam, first of all, because you cannot spend 1.2 billion and then tell parents that you have subsidies at 5 shillings. If we're looking at the cost of dish in a county, it is not 5 shillings. The cost of dish in a county, 1.2 billion is a lot of money. If you do the 1.2 billion and what comes from the donors and what the parents contribute, so what parents are sold for is the 5 shillings. No, it does not cost 5 shillings a meal.
Yes.
We can reconcile that at some point because I know we hosted them.
Yes.
So we can come back and verify that.
Put
But
a
yes,
pin in that.
but yeah, you were saying that it sounded like it was going to be I think from what Mariam was saying, you were like, that sounds high. But from what Janet is saying, it's like, no, for most people, it's 7,000-9,000.
Because I think the problem was the comparison in my head was Dishina County.
No,
but without.
And then also now for Dishina County, do the total. Do the total, how much budget is budgeted for, and and everything that has been used on infrastructure, and now cost that meal.
Okay. So in Kiharu, it's 1,000 bob per term.
I saw, I don't know, I'm not very sure, but I saw somewhere in his circular. And I was saying, that when we are saying that we're implementing free day secondary school, and then now we come with other costs, I know everybody will argue that every child needs lunch, but I do not know why people get bothered about things which should not even bother them in the first place. If that child was carrying lunch at primary school, that they have joined secondary school, what stops them from carrying their lunch? So that you don't ask of them this 9,000 that you are asking. If that 9,000 will stop a child from coming to school, do you not think that that is a barrier? We need therefore to think about how to do what we want to do. And this is a conversation that we had. I'm always very proud of this moment because in the years about 2011, 12 and 13, school fees in this country was very expensive. It was 100 plus. And it is the organization that I headed that petitioned, we did demonstrations. I even remember I was locked in. And we were telling the minister, you cannot tell me that school fees is 100,000 because no parent will afford. We actually need to investigate because it is 100 here, it is 70 here, it is 80 there, and it is 60 in another place. So why don't we sit down together and wonder, what is this? And can't we have a standard? And we sat down in a task force that was headed by Kilemi Muri. I was a member of that task force. And we told the principals, bring your budget. We want to see what is making your school fees 102. I remember notoriously, State House girls, for example, and St. George's, they're neighbors to each other. But one had 90, was charging 90, the other one was charging 72. And all of them are buying stuff from Markiti. So we were wondering, what is this variance?
Remind us what the outcome of that task force achieved.
It is 53,000. You see this 53,000 that is being referred to is now what capped. How much you can charge in a national school.
But now it's shifting with these other expenses.
We all know that is not what parents are being charged. Why? Because the Ministry of Education is not monitoring policy implementation at school level. And I always say that a lot of things have been said, development fees, we need as parents to step our feet. It is not the responsibility of parents to build schools. It is the responsibility of government. Now, developing institutions has been left to parents. What does that do? It brings in a levy. So what exactly is the part is government implementing? If you're not building schools, like now, there's a lot of hue and cry on the placement of
grade 10.
Because why? Everybody wants alliance. everybody wants Kenya High, but we only have one Kenya High, you know. So we are spending a lot of our time beating the minister, beating the ministry about a thing that we can do nothing about. If Alliance can only feed 500 girls, it can only feed 500 girls. The rest of you have to make do with anything else.
Right.
Why? Because we have not put enough pressure on our government to do the correct priorities. And what are our priorities? Why did government stop building schools? Why isn't it building any more schools? For example, if you look at the transition to senior secondary schools from junior secondary school, there is a bottleneck already, because not all junior schools are senior schools. So there is a balance. I think there's a variance of about 3,000. We don't have 3,000 institutions where we can transition.
When you say not all junior schools are senior schools, there was that initial debate, I remember, of whether junior schools should be housed in what was a secondary school or what was a primary school. How did this variance of 3,000 now come about?
Wait, can you answer that after the
Yes,
break?
the break, sorry.
Please. And then there's so much more to go through. But yeah, that's a good one. Let's come back and hear from Janet Ouko. She's joined us to talk about that back to school headache, and she's really painting the headaches. When you really kind of compound it, you can tell how it's challenging parents as they go back to school this January. It's coming up to 8:30. We also have some of your feedback and questions. We'll share those with her in just a moment.
Have been kept, and we're discussing promises made in the education sector and those that have been kept with Janet Ouko. But before that, actually we'll get back to the question around this transition into grade 10, but I know Jano had some feedback as well that she wanted to get into.
I think it's just somebody who's mentioned this is Polycap Ateto, but basically saying nope, capitation is 22K, don't lie, don't create panic, and we're saying Polycap. It's us just trying to verify that it's supposed to be 22. But, you know, last year, and we were talking about even on this show, the news coming in that it was now down to, I think it was 16 or 14. So basically where we are right now, and even as Janet has explained, it's unclear. I think that's what we are coming to. But he's adamant. He's saying, nope, it's 22K, but we're saying it's not clear. So that's the feedback we have so far. But people can continue to send it on our digital platforms, on WhatsApp. Just share as a parent. What is the headache that you're dealing with as you're going back to school? Janet Ouko has also talked about, you know, uniforms as one. And it may seem, not that it's insignificant, but at the same time, it may seem like a smaller evil compared to the others, but it affects everything else. So we're talking about these back to school headaches. We went into some of the fee structure, and I think Mariam had asked about what was supposed to be domiciled in which school. And I think Janet was going to answer that before we go into something else you want to discuss, which is the ghost issues, right? But you'd asked something about...
So she talked about like a shortfall of essentially 3,000 senior schools.
Yes.
And I remember we've talked about this debate of whether junior secondary schools should be domiciled in what were primary schools or secondary schools. So we landed at primary schools. I'm using the former terminologies. So they were domiciled there, but she's talking of a shortfall. I'm wondering where it's coming from, because before we used to transition people from primary to secondary. So how come now when we're transitioning from junior secondary to senior, there's a shortfall of 3,000 schools?
Yeah, not all schools, you know, junior secondary schools were domiciled within primary schools. And there is a quality issue there, you know, towards when we are very resourced and want to really implement CBC proper, it will only be proper to host JSS within secondary school setup, because even the kinds of teachers that you're looking at, the lesson period, and so on and so forth. So in terms of quality, it is desirable that junior secondary school really operate like a secondary school. But in terms of our realities, when I even remember, because I sat in the CBC task force during President Uhuru's time, we really spent time discussing that you cannot, the way our secondary schools are, a lot of the good schools are boarding schools. So now you want to take 14-year-olds, you know, and I think even 14 after grade 6, and you want to take them to boarding schools all over the country. So that was not a little bit, you know, and also day schools are cheaper. And also, I actually think that we must do the most that we can to make most of our boarding schools day schools. I know people usually react to this based on, we have a culture of watoto wakienda, there is some freedom, or we are used to watoto wakienda, we are used to the good schools at the boarding. But in an ideal situation, if we are able to standardize all our schools, everybody will agree with me that boarding school will be, day school will be cheaper. And also, CBC has a component of parental involvement and parental responsibility. And boarding school and parental responsibility are really at cross purposes. So in the largest scheme of things, and in the probably not medium term, maybe long term, a lot of these things will come into play if we plan very well. You know, if the implementation is not halted, if we do not stop planning, if we do not stop dreaming, if we do not stop making CBC better. So I think I've answered that question.
You have.
Janet, you mentioned the issue about the ghost students, and I think it's in the idea of accountability. How do we I've seen I've had the listener who is saying that it is 22,000, you know, and when we interview the school heads, because they are your neighbors, ask them, how much did you receive last year? If they tell you 22, text me that I am lying. If they tell you 16, please apologize to us, because what we are saying here, we are talking about facts. We are not here for rumors, no, it is facts. What is on the paper is that the Ministry of Education has committed to 22,000 per child. But at the end of first term, the government will not send the 50% of the 22. It will be left with some balances. Second term, the same. Third term, the same. So at the end of the third term, the ministry will not have sent the Ministry of Finance. I don't want to talk about the Ministry of Education because really they don't send the money. The minister,
it's Treasury.
The Treasury will not have sent the 22,000. Therefore, how much is the government spending per child? It is not spending what is on paper.
Right.
That is the only thing we are saying here. It is not spending what is on paper. The government is spending the much it has sent to the school. Now, this is where the conversation about ghost schools come in. It is not us. It is the PS for Education that admitted that we have done our audit and we have discovered out of XYZ number of schools, I think it was about, they were talking about 12,500 schools out of 17,000. They had discovered 50,000 ghost schools. The PSA's own admission.
Was it 50,000 or 5? It was 50,000
50,000. Ghost students.
Ghost students.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's on the Hansard.
Yes.
So the conversation is about, fair enough. We really want to thank the Ministry of Education for being proactive to investigate, because we've spoken about ghost students every other time, you know, and people saying they're ghosts. But for the first time, the ministry itself investigated and acknowledged that surely we have a problem. And they laid their hands on the problem. We have 50,000. So our conversation is, okay, there were ghost students. Did ghosts withdraw the money? Who withdrew the money? Is it also a ghost?
Right.
So we have ghost withdrawers of money. No. There is somebody who withdrew 50,000 worth of the 22,000 they're saying they're sending to secondary schools. Because in the PSA's own admission, he says the problem is rampant in secondary schools, not in primary schools. Why? Because primary school is a common 1,400 capitation. Who would be interested in stealing it? Nobody. But secondary school is 22,000 Kenya shillings. So this is a next level question.
It is.
If they are insisting they are sending 22, why then would we say they are sending 16? Therefore,
yes. I get what you mean. That issue of the ghost schools, we've not seen prosecutions of individuals.
Right.
We've seen names of schools. Our reporters have gone to various places around the country, and you find a gate. That's it. The school is a gate. It's called Janet Ouko Primary or Mariam Bishar Primary, and that's about it. But we've not seen prosecutions, which then, or even a start to the process of prosecution, which then makes me wonder. It's the same with ghost hospitals again. Right. Who is operating these institutions, like you said? Who is withdrawing that cash? Because it doesn't take that long to figure out that money went to a bank account registered to a school, and these were the signatories.
It's as simple as this. For the Ministry of Education to have data, that data must have originated from somewhere. It originated from a school. So there is somebody who exaggerated that data. There's somebody who exaggerated that data. So there are administrative actions that must be taken against that person. There are also criminal, responsibilities that someone must take responsibility for.
You
that.
mean this in the case of, I have 1,000 students, but I write down that I have 1,200, 1,300,
Yes.
etc. Okay, then there's also the proper fictitious ghost schools. Like
that do not exist.
They don't
but
exist.
But there is somebody who brought that data. So what I'm trying to say here is that it is not rocket science.
Yeah.
It is very easy to know who did that. It is actually known, the people that did that. But the reason as to why we are not seeing people taking responsibility, and by responsibility, I don't want anybody jailed. Can you return the money? Because we are crying, we do not have money for children. But we are watching and keeping quiet and really flagging ourselves as people who are fighting corruption. We are not fighting. This one is glaring at us. What actions have been taken? Unless action is taken, we are not going to stop speaking about this. And you asked me a very good question, Janet. What can be done? There is something parents can do, because we have done it in the past. Yes, there is something parents can do, and we have done it in the past. We can decide these schools are not opening until you show us the ghosts. Because what again, we enter into another period, we send money to ghosts again. What exactly are we saying?
At the time when you were part of the task force, as you've mentioned, there were these real agitations that yielded results. Where is the gap right now? Because I think we've seen sporadic moments of parents agitating. We saw a lot of school unrest in various schools last year, for example, even as recently as the last quarter with St. George's, for example, where students are pushing back on, I guess, archaic ways of being, of the functions of the schools, whether it's teachers not hearing them, whether it's corporal punishment gone wrong. So we've seen that. Then we've seen the parents going to those schools saying, we want answers. We've seen some schools dodge accountability. Some of them, you can't get the head teacher, etc. But what I feel is lacking is a cohesive agitation for change in the space. Is that the same thing that you're seeing, or is there an attempt to muzzle this kind of agitation? Because at the time you were there, it was consistent, it was intentional, and it yielded results. That doesn't seem to be the case right now.
Yeah, I think the change of strategy also for civil society, where like for example, you've seen a lot of deaths, a lot of disappearances, So I don't know that the space is as open as it were, where we would march on the streets, have a conversation with our government, and have people who are also very receptive, that surely what you're saying makes sense.
Right.
Can we do it? But you see the braggadocio of it's us in power, and so when you guys will get to power, you will do that which you think that you will do, and forgetting that this is people's money. This is taxes for people that you have collected, and you have not collected politely. It's harassment, People, I'm sure Kenyans are really feeling the heat of taxes. Now figure it out that a PS who is the accounting authority, is just announcing to us that we have discovered 50,000. So what do we do with that information, boss? What do we do with that information? And do you not think actually that it is abuse of office for you not to take action that you're supposed to do? It is abuse of office.
It is.
But does your boss think it is abuse of office? If he doesn't think so, then you stay polite. You stay in your office and do nothing, because your boss does not think that you are supposed to take action. So in essence, what we are saying is, honestly speaking, can we see good use of taxes? Kenyan money, can we see good use of taxes? When you visit some of the junior secondary schools in the village, you really feel hurt that there is somebody who could actually sit somewhere and siphon that amount of money. Actual fact, if you're thinking about 50,000 students, even multiply by that 16,000, that's a billion Kenya shillings. People just made a cool billion Kenya shillings, and the only thing we hear is an announcement that we have discovered there were 50,000. It didn't work like that.
Just because of time, I want to get into grade 10 placements, and we talked about the dissatisfaction there from parents, from pupils a lot. And it's, again, because of the facilities, right? Everyone wants to go to Alliance. Everyone wants to go to Kakamega High, to, big schools, quote unquote. Tell me about the pathways and how well equipped our senior secondary schools are to handle people from those pathways, given that we were told, I think, is it 60 or 70% were to go into STEM? Yeah.
The issue here is really, it's not even a problem of the Ministry of Education, their omissions, or because the CBC came in and inherited the traditional problems that we have had. If we are struggling like this about sending some common 22,000 per child, you want to tell us that we have equipped, we now have studios, because especially the arts, the arts pathway, people don't talk about it much, they only talk about the STEM, but the arts pathways, where you want to teach people about arts and all that, it's also a bit expensive.
It is. Even the
I am not aware,
sports as a whole, all of it is expensive.
I am not aware of any adjustment other than what the schools were, and probably the one that will benefit maybe is the sports pathway, because every school had a field, and
but now every school have a field? That's the other thing. Does every school have a field? Is a field enough for sport? Because football and volleyball are not the only sports. In short,
what I'm saying is that there are challenges, and we're not going to stop at challenges. What my worry is, what is our plan? If again next year we will sit here and say that 5,000 girls applied to be admitted at Alliance, which only has a vacancy of 700. So what are we doing about? We have been exposed to all these challenges and we now know them. So what is our plan? What are we planning? Are we going to develop indicators that by next year we will not be here? At least we will have upgraded at least a few schools to proper art, whatever. Because if we can put up a stadium worth 700 million, what can we do with our schools? What can, for example, what can a billion do if it comes to saying that we are advancing? This is where is our commitment and where is our plan? And is anybody thinking that the only plan for education is throwing some capitation? When the teachers quarrel, you throw them some. Is that the plan we have for education in this country? No.
Do you worry about losing a generation in this transition?
It is. I'm telling you, in every, like now how it is manifesting right now, we are going to lose a generation. School dropouts will be more than ever before. Like right now, we shall have. Especially now when we also go in with nobody caring about how much anybody is charging and so on and so forth. This is an attempt at privatizing education. This is actually an attempt. And inequalities are likely to come back more than ever before because the people that have, I'm sure you've seen the investment that the private schools have put up.
Yeah.
Amazing. They've actually grabbed the whole idea of CBC, and because they have resources, they've gone all out.
Yeah.
So here, people who have the power of choice are not going to be having this conversation with you guys about pleading with the ministry to bring capitation. No, they will take their children. So how else are we not widening the inequalities? You see that? So it's for me, I really worry that we are so fixated about the daily quarrels within the ministry and the daily, small things. Like one boy was posted in a school that it's for a girl. It's a non-issue. It can happen,
It's an error.
It's an error. Oh, I want my child to go to a C1 school, but they have not gone. Hold up. 20,000 people cannot fit in Alliance. So we really, there are issues which are not issues. But where is the conversation about this? We have seen CBC because now it has come to the fullest. Now we've entered senior school. So where is our plan? What are we planning moving ahead? We want to go to Singapore. This way, we will get to Singapore with people who cannot speak good grammar. If we insist on mismanaging education in the manner that we are doing. We actually need a proper plan for education. It has nothing to do with capitation. Capitation is kawaida. It's just like the way in your house, you wake up, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That does not mean that is your family's plan. No, we need a separate plan for education. How do we improve ourselves? How do we now adjust ourselves to the dictates of CBC? Because CBC is it's not a Kenyan concept. It's where everyone else is going to.
Yes.
So how are we going there? Where is our plan? How many schools, how many alliances do we want to put up, for an example?
That's going to stay with me of, like, this can't be the plan. What do you think would be the singular, most radical, improved plan to just get us to the next level? If you are now tasked with saying, okay, Janet, you've told us this is not the plan. What is that singular move that you would make beyond capitation, beyond this, strange way that fees are being announced, etc.? What is that one singular plan that you think can get us back on track to have people who, I remember when we had the outgoing Finnish ambassador, he said something very interesting about whether you're raising citizens or raising people who are just being told what to do.
Yes.
And that stayed with me because I'm like, that's where we're going. What would be that singular plan to rein us back in to take us to this Singapore dream?
We have to standardize. We have so many schools in this country. But what is exaggerating our problems is the non-standardization. That honestly speaking, there are some schools, it is only a school because it has a block of 4 classrooms. That cannot be a school. And therefore, everybody will forever not want it. However much you try and advertise it, parents will be thinking the safe place is this, and it's truly so. So how about if we really had a standard for school? What is an acceptable standard for a school?
Right.
You will walk into a school, it is overflooded with teachers, but there is this particular day school that is only operating with 2 TSC teachers, and the rest, the parents have to employ a volunteer who is at the university or something like that,
Yes.
So I think for me, I don't even want anybody else to put up, to do anything else in alliance, to do anything else in these big schools. Can we get into our day schools? Can we equip them? Can we expand them? Don't you think that it is paradoxical that there is a school in this country that has 1 acre only, especially in Nairobi, even less than an acre? There are schools in Nairobi that sit on half an acre, is it? But big schools here are sitting on acres and acres of land, and you're telling me that it is only 3,000 girls that can sleep here. It is simplistic thinking. Go to Uganda, a high school has thousands. A high school has thousands of learners in there. We are underusing our resources. We are so fixated on things that do not help us. If I ask you, why do we not have a day school at State House Girls in Alliance? Why? The parents will say, wataleta bangi. Simple thinking that should not find its way anywhere in policy. But because government also has allowed itself to be controlled by rumors, to be controlled by non-factual things, and not put its foot down, that we have land here, and a lot of resources. Can we put a block? 100 million can do wonders in a school setup.
It can.
But if we insist on managing ourselves this way, honestly speaking, we will forever eat the head of the minister, whoever comes. Even if you bring an angel today, they will still have a problem of my child has not been called to alliance. Because of that, the system is bad, you are corrupt, the system, but...
You're absolutely right, but it also so the thing with shifting systems without fixing the underlying issue is, I think, something that plagues us quite a bit.
Yes.
So I'm thinking when we're shifting from 844 to CBC to CBE, these are some of the things that should have been dealt with, because essentially, even in 844, there's no reason why. The only reason why everybody wanted to go to Alliance is because of the quality of education. And it's incredibly unfair when you think about it, because any school I go to in Kenya that is a public school, I should get the same quality.
And you see, therefore, it's unfair if you say you're going to Alliance because of the quality of education, yet you will sit the same exam with everybody else. I mean, you see, it's not fair.
It really isn't.
Well, there's feedback.
Just one.
Yeah.
There's just one that I wanted to highlight, actually. There's plenty, but on public outcry, someone is saying, despite the public outcry on delayed capitation, students feed on beef twice a week. What's the miracle? I don't think feeding on beef twice a week is a miracle.
No, there's no miracle. It is the parent paying. And it is the parents paying. And this is what we are saying. That the more, and we can sit here and celebrate eating beef twice a day, but what is the cost? What is the cost of it? And when I say the cost of it, I know the cost of meat. I'm not asking about the cost of meat. I am asking how many children have been locked out of this beef eating situation because their parents could not afford.
Thank you. Another one, Waihenya Kariuki says, remedial and other unreceipted monies are quite straining to parents. That's another thing. In just 1 minute, like, what are these? As you say, the ministry needs to tighten, its policies, belts like this. There's those the ways that schools get money. It's remedial fees, like he said. It's tuition. There'll always be something. There's a fee that they usually ask you to give while joining. There's always small monies just coming from everywhere.
Yeah, and I have existed here where a lot of those things. I know over time those things had stopped. I know over time those things had stopped. So what changed? I know over time when teachers were really tiptoeing if they want to ask for a remedial. I know over time when they would not issue fee structures contradicting what the ministry has said. We existed in such a time. So what changed? It is non-adherence. When the ministry does not follow up, when the ministry talks at cross purposes, when you are in cohort with the wrong people, it is you who is the custodian of the policy. We owe it unto you. When children don't go, when we are talking about the rate of dropout, it's an indictment on the Minister for Education, Yes. So when you interpret your role that way, you will be able to say, what are some of these things that are making children to be on the road every day? You're driving to work and children are crossing the road and why are they going back home? If your Minister for Education and those questions do not prick you, then you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
That's a brilliant place to end the conversation. Thank you, Janet. I think when I think about eternal vigilance, it's what you're doing. And I think it's what a lot of us need to do, because you had your pulse on it then. And obviously you're still passionate about it now. But yeah, this eternal vigilance story is, I think, the only way we're going to navigate some of what, and then what you said, Mariam, about a future 10 years from now, what happens to this generation. That is something that keeps me up at night. And whether or not people in private schools, you're going to live with these people, right? So I feel like we always try to isolate ourselves. It's one country, and at some point, we'll meet at the same place. So everybody needs to keep their pulse. But that's Janet Ouko, education commentator, about the back-to-school headache. In the next hour, we're still talking about the back-to-school headache, but this time from the parents' perspective. The January school struggle, a parent's burden. Silas David Obuhatsa is the National Chairman for Parents Association. He'll come and talk to us about that. It's coming up to 9 a.m.